Welcome to Two Shallow Divers, your friendly scuba show. I'm Sean McCready.
And I'm Molly McCready. And just like a boat dive, let's jump right in. So Sean, can you talk about what your earliest scuba memories are?
My earliest scuba memories are a very vague but still very strongly ingrained in me memory. And my mother told this story recently. We were on a family vacation going down to Disney World, and my mom and dad, in trying to encourage some responsibility and maybe some constraint amongst their children, gave us all a budget to adhere to during our trip. And we could buy whatever toys we wanted with $20 or whatever it was, probably well less than that, probably like $10 that we had on that trip. But we had to make our decisions wisely and, go through the parks and see what we wanted, but really kind of make that $10 stretch. So we flew into the Orlando airport from where I'm from and originally outside of Philadelphia. And we got to the airport, and walking through the airport, we paused for some reason, and I saw a scuba diver toy in one of the gift stores. And I decided that was what I wanted to use my $10 on. So we had not yet made it out of the airport. I saw this. I knew what I wanted. And I think if you've seen the movie Big Daddy, it's a little bit like the scuba diver that...
The Scuba Steve?
Yeah, like the little Scuba Steve guy. I don't remember the boy's real name, but Frankenstein, the Scuba Steve toy that Frankenstein wanted as a kid and played with in the bathtub. And that was basically it. My father was just absolutely baffled by this and was like, no, you are not getting that. You're going to Disney. You haven't even got to the park yet. You're not getting it. And apparently my mom somehow talked him into, hey, if that's the toy that he wants, let him take it. Which we ended up buying the toy, and apparently I played with that sucker for, years until he basically fell apart. So, so my earliest memory would be that. And then, I think, my obsession kind of continued. I was in junior high probably when you had to go and sell, the magazines for your school, fundraisers. Mm-hmm. And, like any good family, you sell a couple to the willing suckers in your family and friends. And then you're left with, $15 that you got to buy random subscriptions that who knows what you're going to get. So my parents said, okay, Sean, go ahead, pick out whatever magazines you want. And I remember the magazine I picked out was Skin Diver magazine, which I have fully admit I have no idea whether or not it still exists. But I read Skin Diver magazine and read their trip reviews and gear reviews and everything that went along with it while living in inland Pennsylvania, never having gone scuba diving once. Or, I wasn't old enough to be certified or probably, even to go. And quite frankly, had nowhere near the money. No one in my family wanted to. I think we went snorkeling once on a trip down to Florida, and that was enough for me. But I remember in reading Skin Diver magazine, seeing an article on manta rays and thinking that's the coolest thing ever. And there's nothing better to get a 10-year-old kid from the mountains of Pennsylvania excited about a vacation than to read about Yap. And I remember reading about the island of Yap and their manta rays and being like, I am going to go to Yap. And like researching the cost to get to Yap and everything, and realizing that this is legitimately probably the furthest away you can get in the world from where we were, and being like, I'm going to do that. And so that obsession probably ran with me all the way through, the beginning of high school when, I still wanted to go and still always remembered that, but just kind of was like, you get distracted by regular high school stuff. So
yeah. So then it wasn't until you were in your 30s that you actually got certified. So what happened? Why didn't you follow that obsession?
Yeah.
earlier.
As much as 10-year-old Sean wanted to dictate the future of his life and living in I'm not even totally sure. I guess, yeah, Polynesian island, scuba diving with manta rays. I ended up through high school and in college doing most of my traveling outside of with my family to Europe. I lived in Ireland for a year, lived in Dublin, and traveled all around Europe, loved it. Never once thought about scuba diving in any of the time I was there, which I probably wouldn't have been able to. I was on a student's budget.
Sure.
I was barely eating, let alone doing things like scuba diving. And also, I don't like hanging out on the beach with nothing to do. And so whenever people talked about beach vacations, I was like, why would we go to a beach vacation when we can go to a fun city and do 900 things?
Sure.
This'll, for all you listening, this will be a maybe recurring topic of differences on how we spend vacations. Molly, I'll let Molly describe her own vacationing and not put words into her mouth, but I very much relax by doing things that I don't have to do in life. And so my vacations of going around, Europe or trying to get back to Europe and traveling in ways that I didn't have to do was kind of my approach that kept me away from the beach. So, yeah, so that was, and I never really thought about it. I moved out to Chicago, and despite having a giant freshwater lake with lots of great sunken objects in it, I just never crossed my mind to go diving.
Not really a common topic about Lake Michigan. I mean,
nobody really talks about diving Lake Michigan unless you're hanging out with scuba divers.
Exactly. So I can see why that wouldn't be exactly on the front of your radar when you moved to Chicago.
Yeah, but it wasn't until we did a trip to Hawaii, and we took our vacation when we were on Kauai and did the extended amount of time by beaches, and again, my restlessness led to me snorkeling repeatedly. Coming out with a sunburned back that, literally looked like one of the red shells in Mario Brothers and Mario Kart. Like, it was fluorescent red, matched only by your seatbelt sunburn that made you look like a beauty contestant.
Yeah, that was a special moment in our lives.
It's a great trip. There's nothing better than getting a convertible in Hawaii and getting sunburned in the first half hour. So it wasn't until that I started thinking about it again. And then when we started planning our honeymoon, I realized, oh, shoot, we can go scuba diving because I'm a little obsessed with the points and miles world. And Molly and I...
A little is a huge understatement.
Molly and I were able to do a honeymoon that included a trip to Bora Bora. And so... and I realized that there was some great scuba diving, and let's do it. And... big thanks to your cousins, Brian and Megan, who gave us an awesome wedding gift of some scuba gear, some flippers and snorkel and masks and booties and dive bag and really said, hey, go scuba diving because this is something we love doing in our life. And that was it. That was the start of the addiction. They're the ones who really were our they were the pusher that made me a scuba diving junkie. Thanks, Brian and Megan. No, really, I mean that. Thanks. Yeah. So, so that's my story. That's how we got into it.
Cool.
It was always something I wanted to do. So when I realized I had the chance to do it, let's do it. How about you? What was your earliest scuba memories, and how did you get into this watery world?
So I definitely did not have a scuba obsession from an early age, nor did I subscribe to a scuba magazine.
Your loss.
Clearly. But growing up, my family used to travel a lot, all road trips. But we had family spread out all over the country. And so we would take these awesome long car trips to each of the coasts. And we would normally stop and stay with family along the way. But periodically, if we were in a place where we didn't have family to stay in, we got to stay at a hotel, which was always super exciting. And the pool was obviously the best part, which I think is true for most kids. But I was always the last one out of the water, whether it was in the pool or it was in the ocean when we finally did make it to one of the coasts. And my parents used to call me a fish just because I loved being in the water all the time. So I didn't have an affinity for scuba diving in particular growing up, but it's not a huge stretch to see why I would enjoy spending time in the water. Kind of similar to you, I didn't, even though we both ended up kind of finding this love of travel and visiting new places, scuba didn't play into that until we got certified before we got married. But yeah, we'll talk more about some of our travels in future episodes. But yeah, that's my scuba story. I don't have like a great distinctive memory, but that's how I got here.
So what were your thoughts when I suggested getting scuba certified for our honeymoon?
I don't actually remember specifically. I think I'm so sorry. I wish you all could see Sean's disappointed face right now.
She doesn't remember when I proposed to her either. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised that she doesn't remember me proposing scuba diving.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I don't remember exactly what my response was for the scuba proposal, but both of us have really enjoyed trying new things, and the fact that it was going to be something that we could each enjoy on a beach vacation, which I do like beach vacations, unlike you. The fact that this would be something that would maybe inspire you to want to plan more beach vacations was appealing to me for sure. But also just trying something new. It sounded really cool. I'm sure I also had the response of like, oh, can we afford that? Like, that sounds like a really expensive hobby. Yeah, I don't know. Do you remember that conversation?
No, okay. I just remember that I talked you into 4 days of diving. Consider that a big win.
Yeah, that's a great win.
Yeah.
For you.
Especially because Molly's not always the most open to getting up early in the morning, let alone getting up early in the morning on our honeymoon.
Also a huge understatement. I hate the mornings.
So then I guess the next part on our path was getting certified, and the timing was kind of perfect. We were checking out the different scuba shops and places we could go, and Learn Scuba Chicago, which obviously is based here in Chicago, had a Groupon for a deal on your basic certification class, and we were able to jump and pull the trigger on that and meet the folks up at Learn Scuba Chicago, which is an awesome group. We are planning on inviting them on the show. I hope they come on the show.
I hope so too. That'd be great to talk with them.
Yeah, especially because we've both kind of flirted with the idea of getting Dive Mastered certified with them, and then both decided to launch podcasts and realized that ate up a bunch of time.
We couldn't do both.
But now we're doing a scuba podcast, so now it might make sense to do it. So who knows? Maybe Learn Scuba Chicago. If you're listening, the McCreadys might be coming back. But I loved the model. It seemed like a cool store. Being a nonprofit dive shop, they do a bunch of work to support veterans, and they do adaptive scuba for individuals who have accessibility needs with diving, and they do a bunch of conservation efforts. So the idea of getting our certification with them and getting it with a little financial break, because we're still nonprofit employees, was a big deal. So it was awesome. And well, it started as being awesome. There were some bumps in the road. You want to talk about our certification process?
Yes. So we signed up for this Groupon, which was great, and we both went for our first class. So when you are going through the certification process, the basic requirements are that you have to do 3 days in the pool, there's a written test, and then you have to also do 2 days of open water dives. So we're doing our 3 days in the pool, and I'm pretty sure we scheduled them out already, had signed up for the classes. And there's Learn Scuba Chicago partners with a bunch of different places here in the city. And so we found a school that was going to work location-wise for us. And after our first day of scuba diving in the pool, I guess it was a couple days after that. I don't actually even remember.
Yeah, probably.
Must have been. So yeah, a couple days after that, we went on a ski trip, and I tore my ACL. And so instead of being able to rapidly go through these 3 classes, which I'm sure we had signed up for within the next couple weeks, I had to sit that out and figure out how to rehab my knee, and ended up having surgery. And Sean had to go forward without me to the scuba classes, which, I mean, I'm sure you can already tell by his excitement and love of scuba diving that that was not really a problem for him, but it meant that I had to sit on the sidelines for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would have preferred to have gone through it with you.
Sure.
But it definitely, while it definitely sucks more to have tore your ACL and have to derail your scuba certification, it also is not fun to be going to do your scuba certification pool dives and thinking this is the greatest thing in the world, and then coming home and having your wife, who's holed up on a couch in agony, say, "How was it?" and be like, "It's amazing. You're really missing out." But yeah, no, so we started the pool dives with the Learn Scuba Chicago group, which, I mean, I think you may know this if you're in the scuba world, if you're listening and you're just interested in getting involved. It's such a fun subculture of people. Like, people are just goofy and fun, but they're really top quality people helping you get your certification. And I just remember putting on all the gear, doing our first dive, and kind of walking up on the ledge to jump in, jumping in the water and being like, okay, all right, this is kind of cool. There's a lot of stuff. I got to remember a lot of rules and ways to do it. And then going under, being on the bottom of the pool for the first time and realizing, like, holy cow, I'm breathing underwater, and just thinking, this is the coolest thing ever. This is everything I dreamed it would be. And I'm in a pool on a university campus in Chicago. There's nothing going on around me, but this is everything I hoped it would be. And then came back kind of sharing that with you. What was your first reaction on the pool dives and on the first breathing underwater moments?
Yeah, I definitely was more concerned about the whole process than you were. I remember feeling like very nervous about all the things that you have to remember, and just not feeling, just not feeling totally confident in what it was going to be like to be underwater and breathing. I think one of the things I'm really grateful for the way that it's all set up is that you are in a pool. And so a pool is a very familiar setting. And like, the worst thing that happens is if for some reason your equipment isn't working properly and you're at the bottom of the pool, you just swim up to the top. Like, that's totally doable. So the fact that I was in a comfortable setting helped a lot. But yeah, I was super nervous. I thought it was cool, but I wasn't in the same state of awe that I think you were in right off the bat.
Yeah, it wasn't amazing to you that you were breathing underwater.
I mean, I thought it was cool, but no, I didn't think it was amazing.
All right. Again, I don't understand you. So we did our pool dives, did those couple days, and it's just after work, for those who are new, you just go do a couple hours, you jump in the water. And then you have to take your written test as part of the certification process.
Before you do the open dives.
Yep.
Open water dives.
So I remember doing that, and you have the study guide, but we were getting ready for getting married, mm-hmm. and so planning a wedding, and maybe more importantly, planning a honeymoon.
In our mind, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I should clarify that I did end up getting the other 2 classes before our wedding, so I had to go through all of my physical therapy for my torn ACL, but then so I did that for 6 months, but then was able to get in the pool and do my final 2 classes so that we could get certified before we left. Sorry,
yeah. So just a recommendation: if you're going to tear your ACL, do it in January, so you hit your out-of-pocket maximum right away and can go to physical therapy 5 days a week, as I was encouraging you to do, to make sure that you could do scuba. Yeah, so time your ACL surgery as well. So the written test we both needed to do. So I discovered, and I recommend this to anyone, the Quizlet app, that's Quizlet, has a bunch of note cards that are prepared for scuba. And I'm a big fan of note cards, but don't like carrying around note cards. And so the Quizlet app was awesome. I used it for the scuba certification test.
Yeah, I did too.
But yeah, so we both went in, did the written test, no problems there. Again, I think there's math and science behind it, like to know what you're doing safely, but it's not an overwhelming written test. It's, I think,
oh yeah, not at all. And I mean, there's also just tons of videos online, and I think they gave us a booklet or something for us to study as well. So lots of resources for you to feel comfortable with the information. And
and YouTube videos are great for explaining the physics of gas laws, which sound daunting.
Yeah,
because you're remembering high school chemistry and physics, but
or not remembering high school chemistry and
but
physics.
are really just ways to understand the safety for scuba diving. So I definitely recommend them to understand it. But then, so then we did our open water dives at the beautiful Haigh Quary in Kankakee, Illinois, which if you haven't ever gone quarry diving, you're missing out. And we say that just because you're diving in a pool and everything's crystal clear. You can see everything ahead of you. And then you go to a quarry in Kankakee where the water temperature is a little less warm than in the pool. And probably a little less warm than in the tropical destination that you're going to do your diving.
Definitely.
And
the visibility was like 3 feet away from your face, if that.
Also potentially because there's like 6 new divers diving together, kicking up silt, and
that doesn't help.
And like you're literally in your first time and realizing just how bad you are at diving, but trying to get it done. But actually, Haigh Quary is awesome. Like I will say, the quarry itself has sunken cranes, sunken planes. They have sunken classroom platforms, which are big, I guess, steel. I'm not totally sure about that. We should probably find that out. Platforms that have been sunken into the water so that you and your diving buddies can go down and practice your skills underwater in an open water dive. And that's just a real cool dynamic to do. Learn Scuba Chicago does it great. They make a day out of it, and you have your team goes out and you kind of do a potluck meal in between your dives for your surface interval. I had the benefit of one of the people who did our dive with us was apparently a former chef or current chef at a like 4 or 5 star hotel in Chicago. So we had maybe the greatest potluck that was ever put together. And also you get to kind of hang out and get to know the Learn Scuba team and your dive shop team a little bit better. So for as much as we kind of knock quarry diving because the visibility is not exactly exciting and you're nervous and you're practicing your skills, it is a pretty cool place. I'm looking forward to go back. This year they actually have a day where you can go and try out all sorts of new gear and kind of sample and see things. So that's something I'm hoping to do. We got to try to figure out the weekend schedule, but hopefully we can come back with some good gear reports after that and recommendations. So what were your thoughts on anything else that jumped out at you on the quarry diving experience to get our open water certification?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would say is I know some people will do like their pool dives and written test here and do their certification in a more beautiful environment than in the quarry in Kankakee. And one of the benefits of being in the quarry, and this is less specific to the quarry, but you're with your dive instructors, the people who you already are familiar with. And there's, as you kind of each step along this path, as you are doing something new and or in a new environment, it's just really nice to have some of those pieces that help you feel comfortable and just make you feel like you're a little more prepared for that experience. And so I really appreciated being with the Learn Scuba Chicago staff. And I'm sure that would be true of any instructors that you had previously.
That comfort in your first open water dive is nice.
Yeah. And then I felt like we were really well prepared for going off and being with other people who we didn't know as well, because we had already gone through all of the steps and felt more comfortable and were able to actually appreciate our surroundings instead of still being focused on like, how do you remove your mask underwater and how do you clear it and all of that.
Yeah, I think it worked well for our long-term appreciation and enjoyment of diving. Now, that said, I could see people who are saying, I have limited vacation days and limited time
Absolutely.
to dive, and I want to jump right in doing a certification dive on site in a more vacation-y and more exciting dive location. But I think just know who you are, know whether you want that comfort and confidence and reliability, or if you're already very comfortable and you wouldn't mind diving with strangers when you're doing your skills and practicing.
Yeah, great point.
So, all right. So that was kind of the story behind our certification. So that's how we both got into this and our opening scuba experiences.
I think we're going to link on our Facebook page the video from the Haigh Quary, just so you have a sense of the beauty that's available in Kankakee.
Kankakee is a great town. I'm sure it's wonderful.
I'm sure it is too.
But they're probably not the videos that are selling most people on scuba diving. But they're the best of people. We'll say this. They're the best of people. And for given the resources, I'd rather be able to dive in Kankakee than not dive anywhere.
Totally.
And we did learn really well.
We did.
So
all of those are true.
Yeah. So
the video is really funny.
So Haigh Quary. Yeah, it is pretty good. So all right. Well, I think we're probably coming up on our safety stop. So we've got about 3 minutes left. And so we got some time for some rapid fire questions. So Molly, my first question for you. What's the coolest life that you have seen while scuba diving?
So I have two potential answers, but I'll say the first coolest thing I saw while scuba diving are eagle rays. They are just the most majestic animals. So when we first saw them, we were diving in this really, really shallow channel or valley.
Yep, channel.
And this school of eagle rays came along, and our dive master. Okay, our dive master kind of motioned for all of us to stop, and he encouraged us to just kneel on the sand right there. And so we all knelt down, and it was like we were like standing in attention to watch this beautiful scene of eagle rays. And they looked like a flock of birds. Like the way their bodies move really does look eagle-like. I totally understand why they have that name. And it was beautiful and just kind of breathtaking, and is one of the things that I now get so excited anytime I see an eagle ray, even though seeing them as a group was definitely the part about it that made them majestic.
Awesome. And just a little fun fact that I found out when you said a school of eagle rays.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that's accurate.
Yeah,
Is it?
The collective. So I'm not 100% sure we've got this, but a group of stingrays is actually a fever.
Ooh.
A fever of stingrays, but manta rays are apparently a squadron.
Ooh.
A squadron of manta rays.
Nice.
I don't know the technical term for a collective of eagle rays.
I'm going to call them a flock.
A flock. Okay, that was it. I don't know if you have the authority to make that decision.
Oh, I definitely don't. So no one quote me on that. That's how I'm going to refer to them.
All right. So if someone knows what the technical definition, if there is an eagle ray expert out there watching this who can come in and weigh on this, tag us on our social media. That's at 2 Shallow Divers, wherever you are. And let us know what the technical term for a group of rays, eagle rays specifically, are.
Yes.
So
that's my answer. But I have a rapid fire question for you.
Okay.
What is one thing you've seen underwater that has surprised you?
Surprised me. Okay. Yeah. Okay. The thing that surprised me the most would be when we were in Cozumel, and were diving with one of the kind of larger groups we were with. I think it was maybe 8 people with the group. And I was a little behind the group, the main part of the group, but there were 2 people behind me. And I turned around at one point just to make sure that, we still had a line of sight. And as I turned around to look at them, I realized they were stopped and looking at something. And I kind of came back to look at with them and see what they were looking at. And I had legitimately no idea. They were looking at a outcrop of coral, as far as I knew, that was pretty high. I was just looking straight ahead and couldn't see it. And all of a sudden, you started to see something change in color. And it was a cuttlefish that had changed from its camouflage of the outcrop as it swam out towards us a little bit and changed into a camouflage of the blue of the water.
So cool.
Yeah, and it was the most surprising thing because I think I'm well aware of camouflage skills of animals, and it's kind of cool to see and understand. But I couldn't believe how well camouflaged that was. And as it moved back into the outcrop, seeing it move back into that camouflage and realizing that, thank God for those 2 other divers who had seen it, but I never would have seen it in my own eyes. And now I just try to look for them, any sort of great camouflage all the time. So that was the most surprising thing, the surprisingness of how amazing that camouflage is.
Yeah, cool.
So, okay. Third rapid fire question for you, Molly.
Yep, what's up?
If you had to choose a spirit animal from the aquatic world, so it must have some tie to water other than it drinks it. It doesn't have to be a fish, but a spirit animal from the aquatic world. What would your spirit animal be and why?
So my spirit animal would be a manta ray. And my reason for it is not because it's your favorite or the thing that you were excited about when you were little.
Doing something romantic.
No. The reason is when we first went diving in Bora Bora, our dive master explained to us that we were going to see manta rays, and that when we see them, if we are underneath them, we should let out our air very slowly so that it's a thin line of bubbles rather than the typical kind of
normal exhale.
Right. Yeah. The normal exhale. And we were like, why would that change anything? And he explained that the normal exhale, that the amount of bubbles that come up actually tickles the underbelly of the manta ray, and I am a very ticklish person, and so I am going to acknowledge that a manta ray would be my spirit animal. I hope our nieces don't listen to this.
Molly has convinced my 2 nieces, our nieces, that after getting married, she magically became not ticklish.
It's an amazing thing to convince children of.
Which, as you can imagine, is incredibly important. But if they hear this, you're done.
It's all downhill.
So, yeah.
I don't think they're into podcasts yet, so I think we're going to be okay.
Podcasts, but we want to get them into scuba diving, so
yeah,
they've got some time.
What's your spirit animal?
I think my aquatic spirit animal would be an otter.
Oh.
I feel like otters are very playful in the water. They seem like they're naturals in the water. And I enjoy the stories of mischievous otterness that goes on. Even though they don't go that deep, they're shallow divers as well.
Oh, nice tie-in.
Hey-oh, see what I did there? All right, so with that amazing pun, and that is just the first of many to come.
Oh, boy.
I guess, actually, with that, I'd want to know what your spirit aquatic animals are.
Yes.
Who are our listeners?
Please tell us.
I can think of no better way to get to know our listeners and to be able to...
I could think of a couple better ways, but this will be a good start.
Okay, meeting in person comes shortly after knowing what their aquatic spirit animal is. But I feel like when you know someone's spirit animal, you know a little something about them that you often don't get to know about people until you know them much better.
It's true. You know something about me that my nieces don't even think are true.
I've known that
Not you. I mean our
fall
listeners.
for the fact that you're no longer ticklish. But yes, our listeners know that. But with that, and now that our show is devolving just into Molly's laughter.
Oh, sorry.
We're almost out of air, and so we want to say thank you to you for buddying up with Two Shallow Divers today.
For those of you that would like to get in touch with us or follow us on social media, we are on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Two Shallow Divers. That's the number 2, and then shallow, SHALLOW, divers, DIVERS. And we also have set up an email account at twoshallow.divers@gmail.com. So feel free to get in touch with us on any of those channels. And we also have a YouTube channel. Again, it's Two Shallow Divers, and that's the number 2. And we will be putting content up for you there as well. Until next time, enjoy your dive adventures, and we'll be back soon. But don't hold your breath.